So abortion's been in the news a lot lately because there's new legislation being put forth and passed in some places such as New York, Virginia, Rhode Island, and other such places. And a lot of these laws are being frowned upon by a lot of people, myself included. So real quick, I'm not going to get into my personal stance on abortion. I do think that Roe v. Wade should be overturned. I don't think that the court should have interpreted that the Constitution sought to speak anything about abortion. And certainly it should at least be relooked at because we have advanced in medical science and science then about birth and labor and things like that, and the viability of fetuses that has far exceeded what we had in the 70s, so it should be relooked at. I would be in favor of overturning that, but nonetheless, I could say that reasonable people could have good arguments for pro-choice and pro-life. The reasonability stops, though, when you start talking about late trimester abortions for reasons that aren't the woman's life being in jeopardy. I think that that's disgusting, and we see, for example, not only is this passed in New York, but it was celebrated. The Como lit up New York in pink because it was a big celebration. People will say, I've seen people say, well, this legislation doesn't say that you can have late-term abortions for any reason. Yes, it does, because if you look at Doe v. Bolton, which was a Supreme Court decision in the 73, it defines women's health as it could be emotional health, it could be mental health and things like that. So the way the new law is passed is that if a doctor and a woman agree 8-9 months into a pregnancy that, hey, I don't think it's good for me to have this baby because it'll affect my emotional health, I might get depressed, then that's a viable reason for termination of that baby, which is a very terrible thing. It gets even worse when you get into the law that thankfully didn't pass in Virginia, where a legislative woman who was pushing, the woman who wrote the bill and was pushing it forth, admits in front of a council that, yes, this would actually mean that even after dilation, that there could be an abortion of the fetus baby at that point if the doctor and the woman decide, which is disgusting. Virginia's governor, who is a pediatrician, seeks to speak about this, and you've probably heard about this in the news. He says something to the effect of, I could tell you exactly what would happen with this baby, or with this infant. First, it would be made comfortable, then it would be resuscitated if the parents and the doctor agreed. After that resuscitation, then the mother and the doctor would have a discussion on what to do. In other words, if the woman has the baby and then decides, well, I'm not sure I want to keep it at that point, then the doctor and the mother could discuss what to do, and they could possibly not resuscitate or leave the infant be comfortable as it's terminated, which seems disgusting. Anyways, this all leads us into this video where Tucker Carlson brings on a woman who's going to defend abortion. And the point of this video is, one, these laws are disgusting and we should all be appalled by them. And there's not a lot of support. Only something like 13% of people in the United States polled support late trimester abortions, except for reasons of the woman's life being in jeopardy. But other than that, most people are against it, and I just want you to see how extreme the mainstream left's been coming on abortion, in addition to other issues that we'll talk about. But here's a woman that's going to defend, and let's hear how extreme she is in defending this practice.
Monica Klein is a founding partner at Seneca Strategies. She joins us today. Monica, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah.
I'm sure you describe yourself as pro-choice. I bet a lot of people watching right now think of themselves as pro-choice. So I'm not attacking you for that, but I wonder what you think of what Dr. Northam, the governor of Virginia, just said, that when a child, he described the child as an infant, is born, there's a point where the mother and the physician can decide whether to kill the infant or not. What do you think of that?
Look, Tucker, I understand that you want to go back to a time where Roe v. Wade was illegal, where women were having back alley abortions, and they were using coat hangers to have abortions, which is actually what's barbaric.
I'm giving...
Okay, so first off, he says specifically, we're talking about babies that are born and the idea that that could be terminated after that. Now, this woman has several options. I've seen people on the left say, well, no, actually, he was just talking about in cases of the baby being physically deformed in a severe way or mentally handicapped in a severe way. Even that I find disgusting. I think we all should, because you're literally talking about terminating a living being because you don't like the illness or the deformity they have, which is disgusting. But notice how she doesn't say that. She doesn't say that he misspoke or she disagrees with it or it was taken out of context. She says, no, what's truly barbaric is that anyone bringing this up obviously wants to return to coat hanger abortions. So she obviously, if she doesn't think this is truly barbaric, killing the babies, she thinks that coat hanger abortions are what's truly barbaric. Now, while coat hanger abortions would be bad, that's not the issue we're talking about. We're not even talking about an abortion. We're talking about once an infant's born. And she skirts the issue by saying, oh, anyone who has a problem with this must want to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's not true at all. I think there's plenty of people that are pro-choice that wouldn't mind seeing abortions be legal in things like the first trimester, that are appalled and disgusted by the idea of we could kill a baby once it's born. But she seeks to conflate that with, oh, that must mean you want all abortions ended, therefore we have to reject and you're barbaric. Let's hear how she continues.
Giving you time to make a real argument. I'm not arguing for the repeal of Roe v. Wade. I'm a very straightforward person.
That is what you're essentially saying.
Actually, no, that's not what I'm arguing.
See? Now, all Tucker's brought up, he even said at the beginning of this, look, I get that there are people in my audience that are pro-choice. There are people that are pro-life. I assume you're pro-choice. I'm not arguing against that. What do you think about this governor's statement here? She says, yes, you're essentially arguing for the overturn of Roe v. Wade if you have a problem with that. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is how extreme people on the left are now becoming about this abortion law. They're now saying that, and this was the fear all along. It was like, well, once you give an inch, they'll take them out. Now they're out in the open saying, we think that for you, we should have prominent, and keep in mind, this governor of Virginia is considered a moderate. She thinks that a prominent politician on the Democratic Party who's considered a moderate should be able to come out and say, yes, we should strongly consider having legislation that would allow doctors and mothers to decide to terminate a baby after the baby is born. She thinks that it means you're overturning Roe v. Wade and you're the monster. That's how backwards and insane this is.
And please don't be tiresome. The governor of Virginia, who's a rising star in the Democratic Party, just said this. There's pending legislation that mirrors it, and I'm asking you what you think of it. That's it. I'm not here to debate Roe v. Wade.
I think that right now, reproductive health care is under attack by the Republican Party. 72% of Americans support the right to choose, and yet
72%, that stats probably is close to the truth. But I think most of that is considering first trimester abortions. Again, the studies show that only like 12% of people support third trimester abortions. I don't know of any study, because it's such an appalling, ghoulish statement that you should be able to kill babies once they're born, like this governor said. I don't know what the polling on that number would be. Hopefully very small, like 1%. Yet she's, oh, well, it's an attack against abortion rights if you have a problem with that. 72%. Of course, but she's conflating the argument. She's trying to make it like it's all or nothing. You can't have a nuanced position that say, we think some abortions should be legitimate, but these grotesque third-term abortions should only be done in cases of a mother possibly dying if she goes into labor. And certainly no one's reasonable should be thinking after the baby's born it should be allowed to be terminated. Yet she's complaining you have to be for, if you're not for all of that, then clearly you're against all abortions, which is ridiculous.
We have Trump and we have sexual predator Kavanaugh trying to repeal Roe v. Wade.
Sexual predator Kavanaugh. Did you get that? This is, again, this is how extreme. This is everything coming together that I've been talking about in all these videos. Guilty until proven innocent. Identity politics. Setting up a battle between people based on immutable characteristics such as their sex or their gender. What did Kavanaugh's a sexual predator? He was just cleared in all of the findings, all the investigations that went on to him from the DOJ and other judicial branch. He was cleared of all that, yet she still says he's a sexual predator, as I predicted would be the case, because the entire thing was, it was all about Kavanaugh possibly overturning Roe v. Wade. So they had to smear him. They don't care that they're saying he's guilty until proven innocent. They don't care that there's no evidence against him. Now they want to be able to kill babies after they're born, and they don't like Kavanaugh because he might stand in the way of that. As would most people. I think that hopefully the entire Supreme Court, even the ones on the left, would be disgusted by this position. But in order to defend this position, she has to smear other people as sexual predators. Notice how she hasn't once talked about the issue that Tucker brought up. And now Tucker's going to give the benefit of the doubt later in his show, which I won't show the clip of, where he's like, oh, she doesn't want to defend it. She was just ignoring it. I disagree. I won't be willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. I think she supports this position, supports this legislation, and she knows that she can't defend it. And so she's doing what she could do best, which is smear people, malign people, and say that if you're not for this grotesque practice, then you must be against all abortions, which is absurd.
And trying to take away our control over our own bodies. This isn't about babies. This isn't about healthcare. This is about you attempting to control women's bodies.
Okay. So you see what she's saying? If you say, I don't think that a mother and a doctor should be able to decide to kill a baby after it's born, then you're trying to control women's bodies. This is insane. This is actual insanity. How could the same argument not be applied then how is it still part of a woman's body once birth has been given? There's no logical explanation for that. In that world, is it because it was once part of her body, then she could do... What is the time limit? How long would this woman say? After 2 years, is it still part of the woman's body? Could you terminate a baby after 2 years? Is it only 30 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 5 years? We don't know. Clearly, we as reasonable people should understand that once the baby is born, you shouldn't be able to terminate it. The same with up to dilation. Are you telling me that just because the umbilical cord's attached, even though we know that that baby would be totally viable afterwards, it's 8.5 months in, we know that the baby would be born, and the woman's like, nah, I don't want to. That's what this legislation in Virginia said, that she should still be able to terminate, even at dilation. That is the insane extremes we're talking about. If the baby's born and the umbilical cord's still attached, well, that's still part of your body and you could kill it. I had this argument in policy debate years ago. And it was like, that's unbelievably ghoulish. That's what this woman told me. Yes, while that umbilical cord's attached, that's still part of my baby. I could choose to do whatever I want to my body at that point. Even if the baby's exited her and it's just attached by the umbilical cord. You could still kill it. I was told this in a debate. Now we've taken it a position further. Even once the cord's cut, you could still determine that's part of your body and to kill it. This is truly disgusting. This is evil and horrific. I can't even believe that there's a person that's defending this.
Hey, please don't be a robot. Monica, you're smarter than that. This is the governor of Virginia just saying this. I just want to know what you think of it. Is that okay? Does that bother you? It's a sincere question. This just happened.
Okay, it bothers me that you are attempting to control women's bodies.
You see her facial expression, how she's blinking. She's so smug about this. Okay, it does bother me that you're trying to control women's bodies because you don't allow me to kill a baby after it's born.
You are. The Republican Party right now is working overtime to repeal Roe v. Wade and to take away choice in every single state.
I wonder if you think you're convincing anybody, or if your unwillingness to address what just happened today on tape that we just played is a sign that you can't defend this. And if you can't defend it, I wonder why that is. Have you paused to ask yourself, as an American, as a person, what do I, as a woman, what do I think of that?
As a woman, what do I think of it? Have you asked yourself why you spend so much time talking about this rather than thinking about why your party is trying to repeal Roe v. Wade and control women's bodies?
Okay.
Right?
Because we're talking about killing babies. Literally legislation that says it's okay to kill babies. Not first trimester abortions, not even second or third trimester abortions. We're literally talking about saying after a baby is born, should they be killed? And she's like, why are you spending so much time on this? Roe v. Wade? Like, it's absolutely appalling.
Right now, there are 7 states where there's only 1 abortion clinic, okay? There are 4 states with trigger bans where we would, if Roe v. Wade is repealed, women cannot get reproductive health care. This is about a woman's right to choose, and you, as a man, should not have a single say in that.
You see, as a man, you shouldn't have a say in whether or not a woman could kill her baby after it's born. Period. Now, supposedly we live in some kind of patriarchy where if you listen to these same feminists, they talk to you about how men are seeking to control women and destroy them. We're literally now talking about having a credible argument on national television where a woman could make the argument, hey, I should be allowed to kill my baby after it's born, and if you have a problem with that, that's the patriarchy. Well, if that's feminism and the logical extent of it, then sign me out.
Wow. Do you think that you're making a case that most people agree with, that it's okay to abort a child in the 3rd trimester?
Tucker, you can keep trying to put words in my mouth and keep trying to say that the Democratic Party is hurting children.
I have to say...
Put words in her mouth. She won't say anything. He asked her, what do you think about what the governor said here? She said, and what was it that he said, that after the baby was born, that it could be terminated by the doctor and the mother. She said, oh, by bringing this up, you're against a woman's right to choice. So he's not putting words in her mouth. That's what she said. So clearly she's defending this. Now let's hear how she goes on.
Party is the one that is tearing families apart at the border and allowing...
That was an Obama policy. In fact, the original pictures that showed up of children in cages were under Obama. They didn't seem to care about it under Obama. And also, that's because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the most left-leaning court, said that you couldn't house children in the detention facilities with the parents. And so they said you had to house them separately. And yes, it's not a perfect solution, but what do they suggest? Well, what her and the Democrats suggest is total open borders. If you come with a child, you should be left in. Never mind if that child's not really yours and you're sex trafficking or something like that. Doesn't matter. We shouldn't detain any parents or any children whatsoever. But even still, that issue to conflate it with saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be allowed to have a stance on saying whether or not mothers should kill their babies after they're born because of the border policy is absolutely insane. And it just goes to show how disgusting and evil this is.
Children to die in federal custody. So whose party is actually harming children?
Wow.
I would say the party that's saying that 3rd trimester abortion should be okay under pretty much any circumstance and is saying that even after a child is born, they should be allowed to be killed. I would say that's the party that's hurting children.
Let me just ask you one quick question. I mean, this is obviously a pointless conversation, and I think less of you after, I have to say.
I already think less of you, so don't.
It's an honest...
Right. We know that. Like, this isn't a nice person. This isn't a good person. You can tell by her reaction. She's literally defending killing babies after they're born. And she's so happy. She has such a smile about it.
Question. Have you thought about it? Do you have a real answer to what the governor of Virginia said, or are you going to throw yet another talking point at me? I mean, have you actually thought about it? Will you answer that question at all?
I have thought about it, and I am telling you that your party is attempting to change the conversation about Roe v. Wade and take control over women's bodies. I'm sorry that as a man, what you're focused on is controlling women's bodies, but we will not allow you to do that.
This is a...
So she has thought about it. And she thinks that the men shouldn't have a say in it, and it's all about overturning Roe v. Wade, and so we should be allowed to kill these babies after they're born.
A child who's been born, this is not a woman's body, this is an independent person.
It just confuses me why you pretend that you have concerns over children when you're completely fine with...
No answer whatsoever. Now she's going to talk about the border again. Again, she knows exactly what this governor said and will not address it. That's because she is for it. She's saying if you're not for this radicalism, saying that mothers could kill their babies after they're born, then clearly you're not for any reproductive rights of a woman. That is what the Democratic Party is becoming. That is what the governor of Virginia is saying. That is what she's saying and other people are saying. If you're a Democrat, are you okay with this?
ICE tearing families apart and children dying in federal custody.
Monica, thank you. I appreciate it.
And there you have it. So... now you can see kind of the disgustingness of where the left's going with this. It's absolutely appalling. And keep in mind, she doesn't talk about the issue whatsoever. She doesn't talk about any of the legislation. It's literally you're all on board or you're all against. So, yeah, I think this is where we're seeing the left go, where the Democratic Party's going. You're starting to see these type of bills pop up over and over again. And it's becoming a very disgusting thing. So,